Two Maplewood officers save a man from a fiery crash. We'll hear from both of them in this half hour.
We'll also talk with Police Chief Paul Schnell.
Thanks for joining us for this edition of Your Police Report. I'm Officer Lon Bakey.
And I'm Commander Mike Shortreed, filling in for Lieutenant Carrie Crotty. Two Maplewood officers are being awarded the department's life-saving award for pulling a man from a fiery crash.
Dash cam video of the crash at the corner of Larpenteur and Whitebear Avenue in St. Paul captured the scene of officers Clint Abel and Jason Marino, and they're here to tell us more. Welcome, guys.
Well, thanks for coming. You know, a couple questions we come out of here. You know, first of all, you guys have been police officers elsewhere before. Can you tell us where you came from prior to Maplewood and how long you've been with the department?
Yeah, I was at Centennial Lakes for about 3 or 4 months before coming here, and then been here almost 13 years now.
Okay, Clint?
And I was with the St. Francis Police Department for about close to a year, and I've been with Maplewood for 13 years.
Awesome, okay.
Can you kind of just take us through what happened right up leading to the crash?
I was going south on Whitebear Avenue, coming up to Larpenteur, and I could see a glow in the distance. And I couldn't really tell what it was until I got real close to the intersection. And it took me a few seconds to realize what it was, and I kept looking. Eventually the fire and the smoke had kind of moved for whatever reason, and I could see that the tires of the vehicle turned on its side. And at that point, I went and parked my squad and got out.
What goes through your mind when you kind of walk onto a scene like this and you kind of see somebody that's in pain like the young man in the vehicle was?
My instant thought was just trying to get him out when I heard the voice. I mean, I didn't know if it was going to be possible, but trying to get to him as quick as possible was my first thought.
Sure.
And then, Jason, you must have showed up somewhere in that point.
Yeah, when Clint called it out, I was at Larpenteur and Ruth, driving towards Whitebear. So when I got there, that's when he said somebody was inside, and I originally hit the trunk release thinking, oh, I'll grab the fire extinguisher, and then I looked, and that wasn't going to do much. I was thinking if we were going to have a chance to get them out, we just got to go do it right away. So,
Do you think training had anything to do with this, or was it more like a gut instinct?
I think training helps to a point. I think some of your street experiences and you know, calls and events that have happened through your career that I think teach you, you know, a mindset and how to deal with the stresses a little bit better.
yeah, it's the mindset of being a cop, as we all know. That you're going to be, you know, presented with situations like that require you just to do and not really think, and just, you know, kind of be second nature, I guess. And I mean, I didn't think twice about it. It's just what we're expected to do, I think.
Sure. And you'll both be receiving the department's life-saving award. You know, how does that make you guys feel?
I don't know. It's just any cop there would have done the same thing. So I don't think we went like way above and beyond what we should have done. You know, the 10 guys working that night, if the 8 other ones were there before us, they would have done the exact same thing. So.
Sure. How about you, Clint?
I agree. I guess I'm just happy that we were able to help somebody, get him out of harm's way, and I agree with him that I think almost any other police officer would have did the same thing to help somebody.
Was there any point during this that you guys were nervous that maybe this wasn't going to go well?
I think about the time we were getting him out of the car, you could tell that the fire was starting to increase, the heat, the smoke, and I wasn't even sure if we were going to be able to get him out. And the fire just developed a lot quicker after that, and at that point it was getting quite a bit worse. So.
Yeah, that was my initial concern. Right after we got him out, we just kind of put him on the ground right there, and then we went over and I broke a back window out and we were trying to see if anybody else was in. Then we went back, and I was thinking we got to get away from this in case it does blow up. And you know, obviously we know a lot of that stuff's movies and doesn't always happen that way. But the tires were started popping and stuff, so it kind of makes you think a little more. And so there was actually 2 citizens that helped carry the guy probably 15 feet away on the other side of a bus shelter. So yeah, that for some reason I kind of had the movie thing in my head, like if this thing's gonna blow, but yeah.
Well, we're glad it didn't, and
Yeah.
want to congratulate both you guys on what you
Absolutely.
did for us.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
We're going to take a break, but when we come back, we'll talk with Chief Paul Schnell about Maplewood's busy spring.
But first, here's Community Service Officer Nick Kreckler with this month's Maplewood Community Minute.
Hello everyone, I'm Nick Kreckler with this month's Community Minute. Just letting you know, as we all crawl out of our winter hibernation into the warmer weather, we're getting out walking around and walking our animals a lot more. And I'm letting you know that that's a great thing. But you do, as a responsible pet owner, have to keep your animal leashed. It's all right to have your dog run free in off-leash parks, but on city streets, school grounds, or in parks and public places, they must be restrained. And they must be restrained with either a chain or a leash no longer than 8 feet. Make sure to bring a doggy bag because owners are responsible for cleaning up after their dogs and disposing of the waste in a sanitary manner. It's also against city code to have your dog outside and unattended for longer than 4 hours. Owners are responsible for preventing their dogs from disturbing the peace. This includes barking that lasts over 5 minutes. If you're a dog owner and fail to follow these simple codes, you may be fined. Most of these city codes also apply to cat owners. Keep in mind, it's really just extending common courtesy to your fellow neighbors. For more information, you can visit the city's website. I'm Nick Kreckler, and I'll see you next time.
A full life measured in seats starts with the right ones early on. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Learn how to prevent deaths and injuries by using the right car seat for your child's age and size.
Welcome back. In just a month, Maplewood has repeatedly made headlines.
Maplewood Police Chief Paul Schnell is here to talk about our active spring. Welcome, Chief.
Welcome, Chief.
Thank you.
Recently, we had a woman's body that was found near Beam Avenue. Can you tell us a little bit of how that investigation is going?
Well, the investigation, I think, has really moved forward, and I think there was no foul play related to that incident. The tragedy of it is that it appears to have been a homeless woman who made her way into that area and fell into this creek area, and for an unknown reason really was unable to rescue herself from that, and died in that area. And I think it's a tragic set of circumstances. Investigators are still working on some of the details of the hows and whys and a little bit more about her life, but it sounds like she was a woman who had a fair amount of struggles in her life.
In March, the police department received a call of a father that had shot his son. The primary Maplewood officer that was involved with interviewing that suspect was a Hmong-speaking officer. Can you tell us the advantages of having officers that speak multiple languages?
Well, I mean, I think that there's really several reasons. First and foremost, I think it becomes critical in these cases that our officers are able just to communicate with the folks whose native language may not be English. But second of all, I think it's also important that our police departments really reflect the nature and makeup of our communities. And I think we have multiple Hmong officers in our community. We have a fairly large Hmong population. Sure. And I think in our community and in communities all across the East Metro, and really all across Minnesota, we struggle to try and have personnel, officers that are more reflective of the communities that we serve.
Very good.
And if those two cases weren't enough, we also had a situation with some improvised explosive devices, pipe bombs. Can you tell us how that investigation is going? And if people were to find something, what should they do?
Yeah, I think the investigation is kind of further developing, and investigators are following several leads. There is I would characterize a person of interest, although no arrests have been made at this particular time. And we're still trying to establish what may have caused that person to want to engage in this activity. Although we believe it may have been more for kind of just the interest in seeing what would happen in the creation or the making of these devices. If anybody would come upon, and these devices were relatively small. They were 3 to 4 inches in length, the PVC plastic piping, capped on both ends with a wick stuck into one end of them, which obviously it appeared suspicious, and people called us, and that's a good thing. But we would certainly, much as like our bomb squad does when they respond to take care of and address these issues, treat them as though they are in fact an explosive device and can cause great harm. Stay away, call 911, and let officers get there and secure the scene, assess it, and then the bomb squad will come out and remove the device and ascertain whether or not it truly reflects a danger to the community. More than anything, whether it's our response as officers or whether it's a person in the community, we need to respond in a way that reflects first safety. And if it proves to be just some kind of a fake situation, that's fine. We would much rather be safe than sorry.
Absolutely.
The police department recently made some national headlines, kind of a comical type thing, but we responded to a call where 2 males were committing a burglary, and one of them ended up accidentally pocket dialing 911. What kind of calls have you had to field in relation to that incident?
This is one of those unbelievable things that happens with these types of cases. Following that case, kind of getting into the local media realm, these 2 burglars essentially called 911 on themselves. Once that happened, we got calls from all over the place. We got all the national news media became involved. It is the kind of the classic dumb criminal story that we oftentimes hear or read about, and that really became the interest. In this particular case, as unusual as the case may be, the good part about this is that 2 people who were committing a crime were held accountable. Our police resources were really put to test that day. They ran out of this business, one holding a TV, another holding a box of tools, and both of them ran despite being told to stop multiple times. And ultimately, it was our canines. 2 canines were on that particular night, and it was the canines who made the apprehension of both these suspects.
In that particular case, what difference did the dispatcher make as far as making that case?
Well, it's huge, and in this particular case, that 911 dispatcher gets that call, and you can imagine putting yourself in their spot. They're trying to ascertain what is the nature of this emergency, who's calling, what's the problem, is this an abduction? What is this case? And it was difficult to hear. I listened to the tape. It's difficult to hear and kind of make out. But ultimately, in this 6.5-minute long 911 call, the dispatcher, being very astute, I think, becomes aware that this is 2 people talking about the execution of a burglary that they're actively engaging in. And he deploys Maplewood police officers to that area. They get there, and obviously the end of the story we know already. So I think it was just really heads-up work on the part of that dispatcher. And I think it speaks to the fact that as a system, we work together for the benefit and for the safety of our community. Our dispatchers, our officers, our EMS staff, and the public all play key and critical roles.
Ironic how things turn out.
Yes.
And lastly, we know it's Police Week, and we're celebrating it this month. Why do you think it's important for both law enforcement and our community to celebrate or to remember those that have fallen in line of duty?
Well, I think, in Maplewood and North St. Paul, we have relatively recent reminders of the real sacrifice that officers make on behalf of and in the names of their communities. I think for us in law enforcement, it becomes important that we remember. It becomes important that we are mindful of the very real risks that exist. And it is essential that we're mindful of the sacrifice that the people who have gone before us have made. I think it's, as a community, we know that people who do law enforcement and work in policing can often be the tip of the spear, so to speak. We can easily make decisions that can not make us very popular with members of the public, whether that's a traffic citation or making a quick decision in a very difficult and stressful situation. We recognize that that's a part of the nature of our job. And at the same time, we know that officers, like the officers that you're talking to today who were involved in this rescue, put themselves in danger. And that story could have been very different should that car have exploded or something like that. And I think that's the admirable part about the people who do what you all do, what police and public safety responders do. And I think that's what's important about this. We all know, all of us sitting at this table have lost people that have been very close to us in the course of doing this job. And it's important that we remember.
Thanks for coming out, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate your time.
No, thank you.
As we mentioned, law enforcement and survivors celebrate National Police Week this May. Tens of thousands of officers from around the world travel to Washington, D.C. to honor the men and women who have given their lives in the line of duty.
As we go to break, here's a look at the powerful celebration of sacrifice and honor at our nation's capital.
May be what brings us here, but our unending appreciation for the unsung work of law enforcement is what binds us, binds all Americans together.
I am so very sorry the name of a person you love is carved on these walls. While their names draping this wall is an honor to their service and sacrifice, it's the sacrifice that leaves you with a painful absence and came at a cost that is much too high.
There were bittersweet moments during the three-day event, moments like Julie Olson receiving the Emerald Society's Officer of the Year award.
I would now like to ask our President, Dennis Long, to accompany me as I introduce the National Conference of Law Enforcement Emerald Societies Law Enforcement Officer of the Year for 2010, Police Officer Julie Olson, Maplewood Police Department, Minnesota.
Maplewood and North St. Paul officers were there to support her, as well as Congresswoman Betty McCollum.
But it is good that we recognize the sweet part of it. And Officer Olson represents that for all of us today, the moving forward.
President Barack Obama addressed the crowd at the memorial service. He talked about the bravery of the men and women who protect us.
The wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the righteous are as bold as a lion. May God's face shine upon the lions that we have lost. May He watch over the ones that guard us still. And may He bless, now and forever, the United States of America.
Try and put your arms around a 100-year-old tree. Climb up on a horse and let him run full speed.
They said I couldn't dream. Called me a piece of trash and swore that's all I'd ever be. Said a bottle couldn't see the ocean. Give up. Go back to the dumpster. But I didn't listen. I made my way. And now, I am what I've always wanted to be.
Welcome back. Chances are you know someone who's been affected by stroke. It's the leading cause of long-term disability in the nation and the third leading cause of death.
In recognition of Stroke Prevention Awareness Month, the next story provides preventative measures. It also addresses a startling new trend of young mothers, teenagers, and even babies having strokes. One mother shares her story.
I had like an alarm that would go off if I would move when I was in rehab. I couldn't leave the bathroom. I couldn't leave it without the alarm going off.
Busy working wife and mother of 2 young boys, Celeste Osk had a headache back in 2011, never imagining she was experiencing stroke.
I'm laying on the floor and people are looking at me and I see trying to figure out what's going on.
After collapsing at work, she was taken to the hospital and spent 10 days in a coma. Part of her skull was removed to release the pressure, and it was uncertain whether she'd survive.
I have 2 kids. I'm not leaving my kids. I'm going to go back out and play basketball with them. I'm going to go play baseball with them. It may not be pretty, but I want to do it.
She didn't remember much in the weeks that followed, including the names of her children. But her desire to get better for her family pushed her through 5 weeks of rehab, learning to walk, talk, and read all over again.
The taste buds are very bland, but it's getting better, but it's still not the way it used to be.
She says support from family and friends made all the difference in her recovery.
I think you find out who your true friends are when things like this happen.
Celeste says she's self-conscious walking with a cane, one of the effects of her stroke. People often question her, not realizing the young and healthy suffer, but 1 in 4 stroke victims is under the age of 65.
Stroke isn't only something that happens when you get old. Stroke happens at any age.
Brad Donaldson is the Assistant Director of Operations for the Minnesota Stroke Association.
More women sustain a stroke, but men are at higher risk for stroke.
The organization promotes stroke awareness through education and community outreach. Their message is clear: know the signs of stroke and act fast. The Minnesota Stroke Association also promotes awareness by connecting survivors with each other.
And there is strength in numbers. People like to know they're part of a community. They like to know there's people that are with them in their struggles and in their successes.
Although Celeste has made amazing strides in her recovery, she has lost a part of her independence. She relies on friends like Amy to help her with everyday things, yet she counts herself among the lucky and hopes to help by sharing her story.
You watch and notice and see people that have had strokes, and some people just don't come out the way that I've been able to come out. And I want to share that with others because you don't ever want to go down. You have bad days, but you just you have to turn it into the good days. So.
Visit the Minnesota Stroke Association's website for more information or to get involved in one of their events. A portion of Highway 36 within the city limits of North St. Paul will now have a new name.
Governor Mark Dayton signed a bill establishing the area as the Officer Richard Crittenden Senior Memorial Highway. North St. Paul Officer Richard Crittenden was killed on Labor Day in 2009 responding to a domestic call.
Representative Leon Lilly and Senator Chuck Uyghur authored the legislation that will honor the memory of Officer Crittenden. He was the first North St. Paul officer to be killed in the line of duty. It's illegal for drivers to read, compose, or send text messages while driving, and that includes sitting at stoplights. As part of a statewide campaign, the Minnesota Department of Public Safety teamed up with 400 law enforcement agencies. They issued over 100 tickets for texting while driving in just 3 days.
The department tweeted and posted some of their tweets with the hashtag #JustDrive. They included, "As if texting and driving wasn't bad enough. 27-year-old male cited for texting and revocation." Another reads, 65-year-old female on Highway 55 had phone in left hand, something else in her right, and no hands on the steering wheel.
Your phones can wait. So can your food. Here's a list of distractions, which includes eating and drinking, grooming, and talking on your cell phone. It's also illegal for drivers under 18 to use a cell phone at any time while driving.
Well, before we go, members of the military sacrifice to serve and protect. Here's an example of one of the officers going above and beyond the call of duty.
I was in the Navy and I worked on airplanes.
Patrick Miller is used to being in front of crowds as a member of the Willerny City Council. But the Storytime group at the Wildwood Library in Matamidi was a whole new experience for him.
Their ears are leather and their arms come off for convenience when going down holes. Well, I was a little nervous about reading in front of all the kids.
Miller was invited to the story time to honor him for his years of service in the Navy.
Well, today we had a special story time to celebrate Month of the Military Child, and it's just a special day to honor all the military families that we have in our communities, and across Washington County at all the libraries we had special programs to honor this month at all of our branches.
After Youth Services Coordinator Don LaBrosse read to the kids, it was Miller's turn.
Making bets with money, how shocking!
He read a book about corgis, since he owns that breed of dog.
I had some things to read about veterans and soldiers coming home and going away, but she kind of covered that, so I just left that part out and worked out fine.
It was great to be able to have them read a story and just kind of raise awareness about this for kids. At this age, it's kind of hard for them to grasp, but it's never too early to kind of make sure that they understand that there's different families with different dynamics.
Other Washington County library branches also held activities, including story times and games, to commemorate Month of the Military Child.
That wraps up this edition of Your Police Report. We want to remind you to reach out and like us, on Facebook that is. Check out our page. Give us your feedback and interact with us. I'm Mike Shortreed.
And I'm Lon Bakey. Join us again next time or check us out online. Thanks for watching.